Welcome to the second session of collage in our visual journaling for stress relief and spiritual growth. You can see some of my materials here. While collage can use any number of materials from handmade papers to photographs to things you've printed out, boxes. I'm going to be working today with images that I've found in different magazines. A wonderful resource I found recently is at the official state turnpike rest stops. They have an assortment of free magazines for people who are coming to visit the state. And I was traveling through Ohio, stopped at the Ohio rest stop, and found a whole bunch of things on different arts and industry and vacationing. A couple of them had some really great landscape images. Others are large images. Maybe I will be cutting this one down. I don't know if I'd use that in the whole, but I liked for certain the little rainbow wings. I am going to be working today not with already set backgrounds like this, but with smaller things like this little bird, and I'll be going through that. So a couple things about collage. If you're collaging with magazines, wet glues like Elmer's glue may wrinkle your papers. Some of them will dry after and dry flat. Some of them, the wrinkle will stay. So depending on how finished a collage you want to have may impact your glue choice. So this Yoo-Hoo glue is a wet glue. I love it because I really like the applicator that it has. I need to get a new one. It's almost empty. These are handy. These are called Zig Memory System. I'm pretty sure I picked these up at Michael's. It goes on blue and is clear when it dries. So it says that it's a permanent bond, that it's not going to come off when it's done. It does not specifically, I'm not saying that it specifically says archival, but it's a glue that I've enjoyed. I think it was in one of the crafting aisles. Another glue that I really like for when you're working with wet now, and it's kind of sticky, is Yes Paste. I got this from Amazon. I like to apply this with a used or expired, doesn't have anything left on it, gift card, or a piece of cardboard. It is kind of sticky, so you might want to keep a damp sponge so that you can wipe your fingers off. And then scissors, depending on how precise you would like to cut. Xacto knives are a great tool. Again, that depends on how precise you want to be. And then I like to have an old magazine that I've already been through, done some cutting up in. And when I'm gluing, I like to put my object that I'm going to glue on here, glue it on, and then the glue gets all over the magazine page, and I just turn the page, and now I can put glue on other things. So those are a couple things to have for just sort of setting up and organizing yourself. So you can start with a completely blank page, or if you'd like to, the way I'm using my finished watercolor from the Watercolor Explorations And I have to move all my happy little things here. So if you did the watercolor explorations, this is how I finished my spread. All right, just want to make sure I'm still on the screen. So this is how I finished this spread of the explorations. This was my sampler. I did all the different techniques, and then I sort of let it dry for a little bit, and then I went back in and played with some of the techniques to finish off and just create a finished page spread. So in planning collage, couple options. You can just take images and start putting them on there, or you can start with some planning. And there are a number of organizations that are in classes that you can take on collage. And if you're using your journal as a way of processing it all and thinking about what you're doing, this could be an opportunity where you start with a journaling page. I've shared box journaling, and so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to set up this box journal page, and I'm not going to actually do my personal journal collage just for time's sake. But a couple of things that I'm going to just sort of talk about are ways you can, ideas and ways of sort of coming up with things that are going to take you into maybe a different level of thinking, sort of that outside or more symbolic. So a lot of artists and writers work with the concept of archetypes, and I shared a little about archetypes previously, but there are a lot of different things, and so some of what I'm coming from here is coming from research that I did on Wikipedia. There are lots and lots of different places where you can research it. I am not an expert on archetypes. I am not an expert on philosophy. These are things that I have an interest in, so I've done a little bit of research. And if it's something that interests you, I encourage you to do some of your own research and see if there's more there that it takes you. It can be like a wormhole. You can spend a lot of time following different links, learning more about all the different philosophies. A lot of sociology, psychology, philosophy stuff. So one of the things that I noted was that the term or word originally old archetypes was an original pattern. Let's spell pattern correctly. From which copies are made. And it is this as a vocabulary word appeared in the 1540s. So it's not a new concept. It's not restricted to New Agey sort of things. It's an old concept. One of the most famous psychologists who looked at and really was a proponent of archetypes was Carl Jung. He looked at the idea of the universal archaic symbols and images. And these are things that he, in a really simplified explanation, felt were part of, were developed and part of a collective. So the idea of, historic genetic biological memory in a sense, that psychological memory that's shared. So it's a collective unconscious. And let's spell that right just for fun. Another note that I made about Jungian archetypes, is that they are inferred. So from stories, art, myths, religion, and dreams. So for Jung, you're looking at the stories, the art, the myths, the religion, and the dreams, and from those you're coming to an understanding of the different archetypes. He had archetypes of events, so birth and death, separation, marriage. Not an extensive list. I'm just listing a couple figures, a couple examples. So the mother, father, and by that could be like the creator mother, father. It could be bigger than just mother, father. The wise elder, either female or male. The hero and trickster. And then other ones that they talked about in there were the child and the devil as a symbolic, right? Motifs were things like the apocalypse and creation. So, and then he also talked about the self, shadow, and the anima, or anima. Don't know how we're pronouncing that one, but so those are just some of the things. So if you're looking for a theme, these are sort of like archetypes are kind of big ideas and themes, right? And so you could start with that. And there were some other archetypes that I saw in some of the research. So there's story, and those might include overcoming the monster, rags to riches, quest, related but different, voyage and return, comedy, tragedy, right? And then I have to make another couple boxes here. Usually I do 4 boxes, so I'm going to divide like this for myself. There were what they called neo-Jungian archetypes, and these explored the idea of ego, innocence, the orphan or ordinary, hero, caregiver. And again, these are just little examples that could help spark an idea as you're trying to develop the story of your collage. Neo-Jungian soul, the explorer, rebel, lover, creator, and in self, like identity type concepts, jester, sage, magician, ruler. If you're interested in organized collage that sort of dips further into this, there is a it's called Soul Collage. They have a website that I'll include a link to. They suggest for themes, voices of personality, influences on the self, who influences you and your identity, animal guides, symbolism in animals, and then Jungian archetypes for the journey. So back over here with these guys. So that's something that you could consider exploring. So if you're thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do with all my images? Thinking about archetypes, you might make your list be, in your journal, be some different ideas that go with this. You could journal about what's on your mind about one of these concepts and big ideas, these archetypes in particular, and then starting to go through your supplies, your materials, your everything that you've got cut out, and what fits in with where you are right now. You can also skip that as a beginning step and even though I've started you out with it, and now you're thinking about it a little bit, if you just start with images, and they might be images that speak to your background that you have. They might be images that as you're going through, they just speak to you. So as I'm going through and just sort of sorting here, things that are already cut, I have some figures, I have nature, butterflies tend to pop into my work a lot. I had a catalog of some flowers. So I'm thinking about this. I'm also, you may be influenced at this point by the colors and the patterns and textures of your background. So square, which is sort of awkward in composition stuff, but I'm gonna play with it. The orange, I don't know how I feel about the orange, but I'm gonna put it out there because it speaks to me. Squirrel, that squirrel of judgment asking me, why haven't you done more art? Always coming back. So I'm just gonna start putting out some different things. Some of them may be obviously connected with each other and with the background. Some of them, there may be no obvious connection. With what you put down, some of it might stay and some of it might go. So just sort of taking a minute to just sort of sort through. I have a rather large collection. I spent about an hour the other day going through a whole bunch of magazines, so I've got a lot new that I'm sort of, they're buzzing around in my mind. And I'm just going to take a few minutes to just push things around and see what connects with me as I'm doing this. I may end up having to, something you really want to give consideration to is, do you want or need words? My recommendation in your start is that you avoid words to start, come back to them later, and see where they fit in, because they may not, while they're enticing, they may not really fit in. Those colors do. With your sense of composition and finding a story. Sometimes a word overpowers a story, and it might be better to save the word for the end and see if it's really needed, see if your composition actually is strong enough, because oftentimes your composition is going to be strong enough without the words. Another tip, I tend to like to keep a little paper bag at my feet or taped onto the table, and that paper bag is where I put my scraps that I'm definitely finished with, that are not going to be used in a future collage. They're too small, there's a hole cut out of the middle, whatever it is. I tend to put those just straight into the little recycle. Set them free, let them go. So let's see. If you didn't see the curating collage video, I like to organize my my collection, curate it per se, in little envelopes. I reuse envelopes. Somebody had something in this and I collected it. Water bill. These are a great way to just sort of keep them. The other thing you could do is a plastic sleeve. Those are a great way to organize your collage materials. Squirrel, I don't know if you're gonna survive the cut. I like you though. I still don't know. I haven't decided and where I'm going with this yet. Would one of you guys be better than the squirrel? So some things, like I look in there and I'm like, ooh, that I'm really drawn to that, but where could that go in this, right? I don't know. I'm going to set it out there, even though it's an awkward for this composition. 'Cause it really fits the squareness, right? Some of these I may have to do the trimming yet. I really like it when I've taken the time to trim around the edges so that as I'm pulling things out, I can just grab it and it fits in perfectly. And I don't have to take the time. Sometimes taking that time to have to cut sort of interrupts the flow of making, so taking that extra time while cutting can be a benefit rather than a I also, while I enjoy creative chaos, I like to tidy up a bit so that once I start gluing, I can move things around and I know what I'm still using, what I don't need anymore. How are these all going to go together? I don't know. I don't see that. I'd have to, could cut around this person with a splash maybe. It's not speaking to the other pieces for me. I'm feeling as I've put these pieces out, sense of organic, a sense of feminine and natural, and so now I want to think about how are these going to go together? How do I want them to talk to each other in a story? So Western culture as a generalization in our writing and in our reading, which includes the reading of images, we tend to read from starting at the top left and working our way down to the bottom right. So generally speaking, right, it's a real generalization. A composition that feels harmonious to Western eyes is a composition that sort of works across the page this way. You could work with that Fibonacci spiral, right, that circles in, so you're following around. In a collage like this, I would not try to make that super, I would try not to impose it on it, but just something to think about. So, just gonna, and while I'm trimming some of these pieces, I'm sort of thinking about how would I want this one to touch that one? Do I want to tell a story of movement? How does she, ooh, that's kind of cool. Fit. Something that can help, but isn't always easy to do, is to have multiples of something. So, for instance, I have multiples of the flowers, multiples of the birds at the moment, something that would be unique. So if I go with a non-human mammal, I've got the squirrel and the dog, do I keep both of them? Well, if I've already got multiples of flowers, I've got multiples of people, I've got multiples of birds, I may want to take out something that's a multiple, because at that point the repetition is not helping to tell the story, but adding clutter. It's a little bit of a red herring, right? It's just sort of there, and I'm not sure it's going to help. But I put it there because I don't know until I start to move things around and see, how does this fit here? How does that fit? Now I'm also noticing that I have a lot of pieces that have these flat bottoms. And I need to think about how that goes in. Do I need them to fit on the bottom of the page? Can I put them along the edge of this swatch of color to ground them so that they are not flying away, just feel random? I'm also thinking about the squareness of this. What I would love is more of these like running people. I'm also thinking about cropping this piece. If I were to glue this down here, right, so it sticks off the top, I would glue it down, and then after it's dry, just turn to the back side of the page and trim it off. Thinking a little bit about my colors here. It's very pink, but I want the hummingbird to be up. I don't have to cut everything down. I can leave and just overlap. How are these two sides connecting to each other? What do I need that's going to create that unifying? This feels very dreamlike. I feel it's sort of bring them over here. Trimmed. Ooh, I haven't trimmed her, but what if I trim her? So if I starting this way, if I haven't journaled about possible intentions and directions, I could then finish my collage and then go back to my journal page. I could spend some time with the collage. What does it mean to me? What is it about? What is the story? Is there a story? Cutting around hair is annoying. Just gonna throw that out there. I like this feeling of play and dream. There was so I also want to think about sizes, right? I've got this really big hummingbird, the small bird, trying to have sort of a variety. I don't want to have too much of all the same size. I just find the act of moving pieces around, rearranging, to be peaceful. It's sort of, it's sort of playful. What's going to go here? What's going to go there? How are these connected? What are the options? Oh, look at this, look at that. Is it important to include all of the butterfly's antenna? That's up to you. Torn edges. Again, that's going to be an aesthetic decision. That's a personal decision. Do you want uniformly smooth knife scissor cuts, or is it okay if they are a little bit, ooh, what if she runs across the page like that? And if his flower comes into here with the lamp over top of it, okay. So I'm sort of feeling like I'm close to starting to glue, and I'm going to start to glue those down and then play with the journaling page, reflecting. I need to decide on proximities here, and I think trim that little dog. So just enjoy and fall into the going through your collage, your curated collection. What connects with you? What is something that speaks to you? What group of things speaks to you? And then how do they come together? That's a little bit creepy, but kind of cool. To tell a story. What story is calling to you today? And what can you do with it? So have fun collaging.